Вітаємо.
Good afternoon. My name is Vadim Karpyak, and the following hour, maybe a little more, will be dedicated to discussion of soft power of Ukraine. The thing is that on March 2nd in London, a survey was presented, an annual one, this time for 2022. So, Soft Power 2022, Global Soft Power Index, where Ukraine demonstrated wonderful results. I'll allow myself to quote: "We took 37th place out of 121 among the countries of soft power." So, this is a global rating, and this is a huge growth. 19th position for the global impact and recognizability, well, from 47th to 14th position. Just speaking, put it simply, we're the 14th most recognizable country in the world. Okay, so yes, this is a side effect of the war, of course, but it's clear. But our soft power is growing. Definitely, we rely on armed forces and their strength, but what do we need to do today in the international arena with those results, which are quite positive for us? We'll talk within the following hour about it. So we have Artur Bryzghalov with us, brand finance partner. He actually handled the Global Soft Power Index survey, and he will connect with us from London. Okay, so Artur, hello. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining. We have Liubov Tsybulska, one of the leading experts on hybrid threats to Ukraine. Luba. Alim Aliev, Deputy Director General of Ukrainian Institute, and they presented this study. And we have Heorhii Tykhyi with us, the advisor in communication of the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Please, Heorhii. You're so welcome. And the empty seat, yes, this seat should not be empty. It should not stay empty, okay? It's absolutely, you're in time. Oh, so we'll start with the video speech given by Ms. Amina Jabbar. She's the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. Unfortunately, she couldn't join us, but she gave us this video speech, so let's listen. Dear ladies and gentlemen, recently, we've only dreamed of Ukrainian soft power to become recognizable in the world and noticeable. We started with a limited amount of resources, but we had this strong faith that we have to reopen Ukraine to the world. And today, when we present the results of Ukraine in the Global Soft Power Index rating, we can say that we can claim that we managed to do it. In 2022, we took 37th position out of 121 countries. One of the top 20 countries when it comes to impact. This is success, and this success is not just a figure, it's just not just about the quantity. We become more impactful and more recognizable at the world arena. People know more about us. We present ourselves as we want to present ourselves. We're more simple to those who maybe knew little or did know about us or knew about us via the Russian narrative. An MFA of Ukraine, on behalf of the MFA of Ukraine, I want to express gratitude to everyone who worked for that result. I'm pretty sure that we have a huge potential for future growth, and one of the prerequisites is the synergy of all these state parties and stakeholders and business, civic society, culture experts. Ukraine is not a terra incognita anymore, but we have to make our country a new culture and creative hub in the world. And an absolute leader, Olympic champion, I would say, on promoting the soft power. Thank you so much. Well, regarding the Olympic champions, well, we'll try to do our best. And I'd like to work with figures more right now because we will appeal to this research. It's really interesting. How can we record soft power, the solid power or hard power? Yes, number of missiles, kilograms, amount of armament, but what power was calculated? I mean, the soft power. Okay, Artur Bryzghalov will tell about this because he's the person who actually handled the survey, not just the Ukrainian part, but the survey. He presented a small presentation. He'll present a small presentation. We will try to understand how can we get the quantitative dimension of soft power. Good afternoon. I'd like to start with the methodology of the research, how we actually calculated this, and then we'll come to Ukrainian results, specific results. What is soft power, actually? We define soft power as the ability of nation to impact the preferences and behavior of various substances at international arena, states, corporations, societies, etc. Without violence, but just by persuading. So on the screen, you can see the 11 metrics of the index. So reputation, impact, awareness, three first ones, and impact has a very big value in the index. 30%, almost 30%. And we also have 8 topical metrics: business, trade, management, international relations, culture and heritage, media and communication, education and science, people and values, and sustainable future. So we had more than 100,000 respondents worldwide, and we had it in 102 countries. As Vadim already mentioned, last year we had the survey carried out with 121 countries. Next year we want to have all the UN countries, all the UN member states to be involved. And you can see on the screen the countries where this survey took place in blue. These are shown, and we have some countries where we asked respondents' thoughts, what they think of the countries regarding the previous slide. But in these countries, we did not carry out any surveys due to ethical norms. Again, I underline 121 country. 102 countries. The survey take place there. More than 100,000 people covered, and 40 plus covered indicators. This is the 4th year of the survey. A little bit on how actually the survey was carried out. An online interview in developed countries. We cooperated with our partners who directly sent online panels to people. In smaller countries where, let's say, the digital space is not that well developed, the survey was carried out with the digital advertising. During the survey period, an important thing, since September till November 2022, and you can see we started from 60 countries in 2020, and the coverage grew then to 105 in 2021. And of course, last year we had the maximum 121 country. Just to underline that in Russia, there were no results for that year, so we took the previous one. More than 50 languages we used to translate the results, and the respondents who were asked about the countries, people aged 18, 70, so adults. And we had quotas presented on sex, region, and age for the survey to model, let's say, the population of a certain country, like that. Why soft power is important? In Brand Finance, we have 4 areas where we can use basically the soft power data: investment, tourism, products, and talents. And these data can be used internally, externally, both. We don't just have data of what other countries think about Ukraine, but we even know what Ukrainians think about other countries. And based on the structure that we've seen, the 11 metrics and 35 indicators, we can have various statistical surveys, additional ones, and studies. And on the next slide, we can have an example of it. Okay, we can see it. So in this graph, we can see the correlation between how easy it is to run the business with other countries and how many of direct investment was attracted in the country. Let's take China or US. These countries have a huge indicator of business, easy running, and a lot of investment is there. Foreign direct investment, yeah, we call it. So we can say it's really easy to run business there. So the 2023 results, you can see the top 10 results. US, Great Britain, Germany, they didn't change their positions, but 3 countries improved their indicators of soft power. Japan and China changed their positions, interchanged these, but yeah, all 10 countries represented on the screen, they all managed to improve the indicators for soft power, and a country which showed the biggest growth for soft power when it comes to rating, even top 15, United Arab Emirates, UAE. So it only shows that even in Middle Eastern region, we have a new player emerging, which actually becomes leader, we can say, in this research, and is a leader at the global arena when it comes to soft power and diplomacy. So quite often we compare soft power and military power, economic power. So on the left, you can see the correlation between the armed forces numbers, the percentage of population of a country, and global soft power index. The key message of this screen will be that countries like Great Britain, Germany, or Japan have small armies compared to the population size, but they have huge soft power. You do not need to have a huge army, to be a leader in the soft power area. Exceptions are Cuba and Korea. These two dots you can see on the screen. And when it comes to soft and economic power, we also compared the data, donations given by certain states to others to help with certain problems that they have or may have. And again, the leaders in soft power, we can see that they have really high indicators. Japan, United Kingdom, the US, and smaller countries like Slovakia, let's say, have relatively low soft power. It correlates with their donations to other countries and the support they provide. But again, the foreign donations, it's actually tightly correlated to GDP of the country, gross domestic product. If we take the index again and check this, top 14 and the Ukraine results, we can see that Russia is falling out of top 10 last year. It's the result for 2022, and this was the highest decrease in reputation, let's say. The hostilities that we still have in Ukraine, they, of course, impacted the Russia's reputation, and Ukraine, as it was mentioned, went from 51st to 37th position and added more than 10 points to the indicator. This is actually the highest growth among all 121 states. Also, in one of the characteristics of index, Ukraine was raised to the third position for the most noticeable events. People carefully trace and observe what's happening in Ukraine, but also people are carefully observing what's happening in Russia as well. And it would be really interesting to see how this dynamic changes next year, but currently we have that result. Regarding Ukraine's results for each of the metrics, you can actually see in 2021, Ukraine's position came from 46 to 61. But this year we expanded the survey. So if we continue to evaluate 60 countries, we wouldn't have, let's say, that dramatic decrease. But in 2021, Ukraine's indicator improved. If we take the table at the bottom, Vadim already quoted some of the results, but I'd like to underline that business, trade, culture, and heritage, we can see that Ukraine shows a decline in the rating within these indicators, and I guess it's mostly because of the war. We still have it ongoing in the country. Governance, international relations, media, and communication are going up in the rating. When Ukraine wins, it's highly likely that business, trade, and culture and heritage will be those metrics which will return to the previous positions and even improve. But still, we have to wait, and we will see in future how it looks like. If we take the result of Ukraine in 2023 and go deep into details, how different countries see Ukraine when it comes to soft power, Georgia, Azerbaijan give us the highest scores. I guess it's because these countries have also a similar tragic past with military conflicts and armed conflicts. Top 7 countries out of the list are European states. The states which values are shared by Ukrainians and the citizens of the countries. If we take the countries that gave us the lower score when it comes to soft power perception and vision, okay, who are these? We can see these are the countries who are historically polarized, and mostly the countries of global south. These are. Also, we can evaluate the results, Ukrainian results, in various regions. So we can see that everywhere Ukraine added to its soft power volume, it means that people have a different perception of Ukraine. It changes in a positive way, but we have such regions as Asia, Latin American, Caribbean region, where historically Ukraine had no huge impact when it came to soft power. On this slide, it's interesting to compare results with Russian results, because where Ukraine has low indicators of soft power, these are the regions where Russia, let's say, is a leader and is quite strong. And it was interesting to see, in my opinion, that despite that in many regions Russian indicators go down, Middle East and Africa, well, still these are the regions who still think that Russian soft power is growing. One of the indicators which is not, which we do not calculate in the final soft power value, positive and negative impact of certain country. This map represents how other states see Ukraine, how they perceive us. Green color says that positive impact is there of Ukraine, red for negative, and orange neutral. And it's really interesting to see that those countries who gave us the lowest score for soft power, these are the countries in red or orange. These are marked here. To be fully convinced with these, we had the same analysis for the Russian impact, and we can see that the situation is absolutely different. Those countries which support Ukraine and think that Ukraine is positively impacting the world, they have absolutely different idea about Russia. But we have also those supporting Russian as they think positive impact. Just to finish with a presentation. When there was voting in the UN to immediately stop the war in Ukraine, those countries who did not present their opinion regarding the Ukrainian impact, they did not vote for that. Okay, so thank you, Artur. I was looking at that presentation and I thought, okay, we have Vatican state, which itself, it's a pure manifestation of soft power, no army, no economy in the classical understanding, but they only operate with soft power. Does Vatican go to these 121 states you cover, or it will be there next year? I'll check. No, it's not there, because this would be the most exemplary, the purest soft power, the Jedi power, I can say. Yes. Currently, we don't have Vatican in the index, but maybe if we expand it next year, we'll maybe see Vatican there. Okay, because when you mentioned that when we talk about relation between economy and the capacity and the strength of soft power, no economy, no soft power. So right now, I'll go to my colleagues sitting here, and Georgi, I'll start with you. This growth, huge growth of Ukraine in, wow, one of the top 20 of the most influential. Is it really felt in MFA at international level? I can give an example when definitely we actually train this muscle of influence, but we ask for ATACMS, and what do we have? Like, maybe we're not that influential as it comes from results. Thank you, Vadim. Apart from ATACMS, we have a lot of types of armament, and we finally deblocked these. Mr. Kleba said that we had 7 types of armament that we had to deblock since the start of war. Politically, 6 of these: artillery, tanks, MLRS, anti-tank weapons deblocked. We still have like aircraft, and we're trying to handle it. But yeah, you're right. There is a correlation between the general reputation, the impact of the country, and political decisions that are made. And the fact that Ukraine has such great result, like last year with the soft power growth, well, on the one hand, it's pretty natural because Ukraine was everywhere, in all the media, and a lot of attention to Russian aggression, Ukrainian resilience. Everybody was surprised. Nobody expected actually Ukraine to be that strong, and it actually gave it an impact. And this is, of course, it happened thanks to many people and institutions and the state in general, starting from the president, MFA, the office, Ministry of Defense, all who communicated, and civic society, business. It's like a collective effort, So many people, they have the same goal, They communicate, they bring their idea, and of course, Ukraine is creative. Ukraine reinvented state communication and the approaches to tell about the conflict, and definitely abroad, they mention it. We can see our foreign colleagues often who say, okay, you found some new communication methods, starting from the social networks, Ukrainian humor that we have, the wartime humor and so on. Yes. This is just the end of a hard year, efforts of so many institutions and individuals, but please, current context and media environment and what has happened in the world is changing. We don't deal with that reality we had a year ago. Respectively, we change our messages, signals, way of bringing those signals to people because we understand that context is seriously changing. We have to use a little bit different methods comparing to what we had a year ago. But do you agree with the statement that the more of soft power we have, the more problems we have to tackle? The last example of our interstate communications, the problems with agricultural products with our neighboring countries. Okay, so before we had no soft power, under the radars, we had trade, we sold our crops, but now we have the war. The soft power is growing. Wow, now we have more attention from others, and we're evaluated as a serious player, and they start giving us some obstacles, economic obstacles. Okay, so can we actually tie this to this? May this be as one of the side effects of the soft power grow? Not with the grain case, it's purely economic story, and it's all about the money. And in some countries, they're very close to elections. It's also political. The thing is that when we come to the forefront, when you're in the center of attention, when you're in spotlight, you have more responsibility. The state gets more responsibility for its actions, more attention, and there are some aspects like last year, the expectations and Ukrainian image, it managed to go up drastically because when Ukraine will not be able to meet those expectations. Okay, these expectations are really high, super high when it comes to the country. This sympathy in one click may be turned into like hate. So we have to be very careful with these high expectations, idealized perception of Ukraine. Please, when you communicate, do it. But there is an aspect, yes, we know. Liubov Tsybulska, she's an expert, one of the leading experts in hybrid challenges and threats. In the presentation, we can read that where Ukraine lost, Russia was gaining. So do you know if there are any facts which would indicate that Russia was systemically opposing, maybe not systemic opposing to grow in the rating, but Ukraine was seriously working to accumulate this growth? Was Russia successful in opposing the Ukrainian attempts? I think that Ukraine focused all its efforts mostly on Western countries. Um, since the very first days, there was clear that Russia was losing in that region, its reputation, and Russia switched to countries of so-called global south. And this is what we've seen, these indicators that in African countries, also Latin America, Pacific Ocean, Asia, well, Ukraine's losing there. Yes. It's because we don't have enough of the resources there. Quite often we had, and we still don't have, like embassies and diplomatic missions, and who are closer to us, the West. We have the same cultural code, and naturally for us it's easier to communicate. I would love to say that Russia, since 2014, Russia is systemically changing all its strategic documents, updating it. And Russia is adding the importance of soft power. And right now, Russian leaders updated the foreign policy concept. It's a very, very serious amendments, very serious updates. For the first time at the top level, Kremlin calls Russia a separate civilization. And they talk a lot about the impact of soft power. So our enemy is really very, very skilled. But what is the danger? Global South countries, they will support Russia. They will start pushing the West, therefore, on our key partners. They will start pushing them back. And we use the very skillfully the window of opportunities due to these horrible circumstances, unfortunately. And we used all this attention. But attention, as Grigory said, Heorhii, the attention starts fading, and we can feel it very well. And when we'll have this pressure added from like African countries, it's already being added, Asian states, when we will have this pressure on our partners, then it would be really, really hard. So we just have to continue communicating. Yes, it's very creative, very innovative. Everybody talks about it, and I'm pretty sure that this is a communication of Ukrainian people who are showing to the state, to state institutions, that you can be so brave and so courageous. You can be like insolent when it comes to communication, and the whole country united. And we're like bees. We're compared to bees, that instantly, even when we do not coordinate, we're not very well coordinated, but we still know where to fly, let's say, in which direction. Yes. Okay, thank you. And yes, as bees, we will keep on moving. So you say that this loss of interest is felt when it comes to Ukraine and attention is fading. What are the markers? How can you say it's happening? Why? Well, just the basic thing, the number of views in social networks, number of followers. My colleagues will agree with that. If it counts that we have those on Twitter with millions of followers, in Twitter we have mostly Western people consuming information about Ukraine there. At the beginning, within the first 6-10 months of war, full-scale war, they were first very actively involved, actively responding. Right now, it goes down. It's related not only to natural fading of interest, but the Twitter policy changed when Elon Musk took the leadership, and we can see that they are oppressing everything when it comes to Ukraine. Artificially, they're doing it. I can see it in my activity. If I had like dozens of requests once, per day from media, from various institutions, right now, much, much less. And switch on any Western TV channel, like, I don't know, any foreign channel, you'll see that they talk about Ukraine, but it's not like, it's on the first page. Reports. Okay, we'll come back to that. Alim Aliev, Deputy Director General of Ukrainian Institute. This institute was established in MFA to promote soft power in the world, Ukrainian soft power. And on these slides, showed to us by Artur, what actually caught my attention, a very unpleasant trend. There is a comparison from 2020 to 2023, And within the last year, we can see that the awareness went up. Ukrainian impact grew. Ukrainian reputation grew as well. Governance. This is for me just a very mysterious indicator, but still, there's a growth. Let's say it's a growth. Okay, if people say, then yes. Who we are to object that. International relations going up, and media and communication going up as well. All right, this is a logical impact of war, of hostilities, of our successful communication, but there's a critical decline in some parts. Business and trade, it's clear. We know. Critical decline for education and science. Huge decline for people and values. Yeah, I would ask Artur to explain what does it mean, because 107 points with decline of people and values, but we stand for people and values. We declare that. Okay. It's a war of values, but what I was amazed most, culture and heritage, 111 points down, and we appeal for the whole year to it, and plus 3 months that the world, because of these tragic events, is paying more attention to Ukraine and our culture. But figures tell us that Ukrainian culture impact is declining dramatically. I think it's a direct correlation with the war, and let's say correlation of offline and online. Between these, what directly impacts other states, and something that is palpable, something that we can touch beyond the country, is growing. If we speak about cultural heritage, culture, which today is really hard to touch. It's not palpable directly in Ukraine because nobody goes here. We have no tourists coming. And artists don't come. We have only one-way communication, and really, it's really hard for artists to go there and present the culture, or present it. I'm pretty sure that after the victory, these indicators, the education, culture, and cultural heritage, I'm pretty sure these will be the key drivers of growth in these ratings, in these indices, because it confused me. It confused me, but I wasn't surprised because I can see this correlation. The same thing we can speak of high positions for the authoritarian states in the rating of soft power, including Russia. Yes, Russia is losing, but not dramatically. So it's about the values for me, and values generated by soft power versus propaganda and manipulation. So in the methodology, I think it's really important to separate it more clearly. Because today, when we have this a lot of misinformation about Ukraine, it's been there in previous years. Now it's like a huge wave of it everywhere. It's not about soft power. It's like a broken mirror kingdom. So, with our experience of Ukrainian Institute, I just wanted to mention that after the first weeks of full-scale war, the biggest request, that we started getting, and we started systemically working with it, who you are. This was the one, because this is like the expectation that Kyiv will fall in 3 days, and so on. The question was, why do you oppose so harshly? Who are Ukrainians? What is Ukrainian culture, etc.? And today, the answer to those requests and questions, it's about how you systemically work with foreign partners. My colleagues already mentioned that Ukraine finally started systemically working with the global south countries, and these countries became one of our focuses for Ukrainian Institute in particular. And also, we do have long-term strategies on how to work in different countries. A couple of weeks ago, Ukrainian Institute opened the first affiliate in Germany. For half a year, we've had already our permanent representative in France. So we need to use this window of opportunities. It's not about cutting ribbons, you know. It's bright, but tomorrow it's gonna fade. Something that help us to build these long-term relations with a certain state, you know, with a certain community or society. Interesting thing you mentioned that they started bombarding you with questions who are Ukrainians. You know, in Davos in 2000 when they said who is Mr. Putin, Ukrainians give the answer who is Putin, but right now everyone is interested who are Ukrainians. Okay, Ukrainian Institute. This whole plan will work in future, spreading our culture. But what people are interested in, if they're interested in Ukraine, there is no answer to question who are Ukrainians. It's not a simple answer anyway. Yeah, it's like a multi-layered thing that it requires time. We give brief answers, but what are people interested in? Those people who want to know more about Ukraine, music, theater, cinema, history, artists, I don't know. Korolev, as a Ukrainian who sent Gagarin to space, what is in their interest? You know, okay. From time to time, we have this survey on how Ukraine is perceived in other countries, and we can see that yes, people are interested in cultural phenomena, history. This complicated history, say, and Russia was always trying to steal that history. Crimean issue, of course, is interesting, and the question why Crimea is an organic part of Ukraine, and well, we're trying systemically to give answers to that. What else did we notice? A lot of interest in academic environment. Studying Ukraine as a country, as a whole, you know, as a concept, Ukrainian studies, and we will work more in this area, of course, in future, and we will expand the geography, and these studies will expand the geography. I really hope that this will not be just our friends, yes, let's say those states. I do hope that Crimean, Tatar, and Ukrainian studies will be present in many countries, a lot of them. Another thing, civic society. Why do we have such a huge resilience? You know, and revolutions, our evolution, historic evolution, like why was it happening? Why do we have this huge horizontal cohesion and strong volunteering movement? Like, it's really interesting for our audience as well. Yes, in fact, this is something that historians say about. History is about topography. And in Ukraine, this is combined really well. Topography and history and food. Cuisine, I mean, yeah. Of course, cuisine, it's for the New Year's Eve. Okay, don't touch the food. Okay, I'd like just to ask you, Artur, for some clarification. People and values. We failed there, you know, we can say, when it comes to evaluation of Ukraine in 2022. So what do you mean here? Okay, because we do consider that people and values, it's like one of our biggest achievements in the country. Yes, of course. You just have to understand, if you want to answer it, you just have to understand what's there in people and values matrix. And we ask people to evaluate such indicators as generous, happy people, friendly people, reliable, tolerant, inclusive. I think that this is the result that before the war, people in different countries had certain perception of Ukraine and its image of people. And when the hostilities started, the full-scale war started, this focus started shifting. There was a value reformatting, the way Ukrainian values are perceived. And we just have to remember that in the index itself, we take the results not only of European states, if we just segregate between regions, like in the presentation, I'm pretty sure that European states and our allies, in these countries, these indicators did not worsen, maybe even improved. But we also take the countries which are actively pro-Russian. So the message, this message had that impact, let's say. That people maybe started looking at us differently, at our values differently. Okay, it's an interesting thing, yeah. Because I think, I assume that many even didn't know about Ukrainians. They maybe thought it's like a part of Russia or close to it. And then for many people, we even were like the murderers, killing Russians. And in someone's brains, that's why maybe our rating went down in the people and value metric. Okay, I'm not sure about that. It would be really interesting to see like what's happening in Western countries and global South countries, because I think that in Western countries are ambassadors of our values. It's working, but in the global South countries, they have very strong pro-Russian narrative. Russia is offering those states all this this coalition, anti-West coalition, and there Russia is disseminating this peace campaigner, like saying that we are ready to sit at the table and negotiate, but Ukraine wants to continue this bloody war. I think this is the consequence of those informational campaigns of our enemy. Okay, can we assume that even in this metric, people and values, if you take the detailed analysis, that this is the roadmap, as Victor loves to say, for a specific activity, because these are the most painful spots. Ukraine is perceived mostly through the prism of individuals, about if Albanian insulted you, you may take Albania negatively later like this. Okay, it works like that. Yeah. For our understanding, the senses that we have to produce, geography where we have to be active, it's really important for our work, for our impact in our countries to be systemic, This something that we've missed for so many years. For this to consider the interests of people living there, because often we have a lot of Ukrainian-centric, let's say, approaches, and we have to understand what is the request, what is the demand. And I think this survey actually gives us a chance. Okay, I think that all of the panelists agree that this fantastic, brilliant result, let's say, it's realistic and it's really beautiful. It's not an eternal thing. Okay, if we want to improve it, we have to struggle and put efforts. Ukraine does not have those efforts. We can't jump higher. We can't jump over ourselves, let's say. Do it better than Italy or UAE, I don't know. And I just suspect that next year we will move down a little bit, like in the rating. But Liubov said that Russians have a whole concept on soft power promotion. And it's a good... that's why we have to think that our strategic documents must include the promotion and enhancement of soft power simultaneously with military support. So I'll start with Heorhii. What do we need to do, first of all, to fix this result for the maximum period of time? Okay, we can't relax. It's still too early to relax. We just need to realize that in terms of communication impact, a lot of challenges there are. I don't think that we will fall down harshly next year. I think we'll have some growth, but yeah, what actually we lacked and our state lacked in general for Ukraine as a country for so many years, what we lacked, the ability to work systemically during a long period and ability to fill this recognizability and noticeability with our features. With the brand finance indicators collected, it's really good that we, by the way, have these measurements, these figures. We can appeal to them. With these results, we can see that we are more recognized. People know what Ukraine is, who we are, but we did not shape our long-term narratives on who we are. What Alim is saying. Our specific features, but what should we do for it? In MFA, they have 3 pillars. They build communication on Ukrainian Institute for the Cultural Diplomacy, Public Diplomacy Department, various events, campaigns, and everything happening abroad. Ecosystem Ukraine UA. Last year, they had a very big push, but minister established it in 2021. But last year, it just, it was given a big push. These three tools that we have, it's something that we use abroad, apart from communication of the minister and the MFA. We have to convert, we have to make it more systemic. Like last year, Zelensky was like the image of Ukrainian struggle. It's hard for distant countries to take some complicated nuances. They want to just have the good guy, And Zelensky, President Zelensky, Minister, half a year ago, Minister came to Cambodia in the street. Cambodians came to him asking, where are you from? He says, I'm from Ukraine. I'm the minister. The lady said, oh, President Zelensky, great, super, okay. This was it was the first person she remembered. It should be really systemic, like a classic blockbuster. Turning the main character struggle for freedom, drama, transformations. This series may not last forever. It will not last forever. We need some new seasons for the Game of Thrones. It must evolve. And we have these challenges right now on how to formulate long-term narratives. How can we establish deep systemic perception? It has to be systemic. I agree with Lyuba. Repeating the same messages in various packages, but the same. Quite often, in our beehive, it's really good to be compared with bees. Quite often, we disperse the signal. In communication, state communication, we have this notion of signal. It must be cohesive. You need to cut off all the extra stuff and just use repeat the same messages. If our beehive will be able to stay cohesive and ensure that we have this repeated, sustainable signal, we will work with the mass audiences. We will create this perception, long-term perception, but we need to work all together. We coordinate. I can't say that we don't have coordination. We even have more of that. And today the biggest task is to formulate systemic, coordinated thing. We're doing that, actually. I love those moments when language says more than the speakers, because this metaphor with the bees, the beehive, it means that we are trying to oppose the bear who is trying to steal the honey. Yeah, it's pretty clear. Who's the natural enemy? Lyubov, your version, what do we need to do for the soft power to fix it, worldwide, make it stronger? Well, first of all, I'll start with the boring stuff, like sort of boring but important. Establish strategic communication system in the country. Unfortunately, we don't have it. We have different departments, agencies, institutions responsible for it, but we don't have, it doesn't work as a system. Nobody knows who is subordinated to whom, what mechanism of coordination, interaction for all these bodies and institutions. This should be finally done. This is what our Western partners have been saying for years. Secondly, I agree that we need to understand who we are. It must be natural. We can't imagine that. Taras Grigorievich Shevchenko told us who we are many years ago. So we have to process these images and explain it. Working with internal audience, because internal audience are ambassadors. They are. And my biggest fear is that we will start stinging ourselves, biting ourselves. What Russia is trying to achieve, Russia is using those tactics to separate us. Yeah, so it uses our vulnerabilities for it. Ideally, what would be really good for our enemy if all this energy and attention was used against ourselves with fights and internal fights. We have to avoid that. So we have to work internally as well for it. Thank you, Alim. Okay. 2022 and the indicators of the rating, it's also about our Um, it's about which subject we are, how important we are at the international arena, but it's also about it's about the status of victim we had before 2022. Now it's transformed into bravery. So this image of victim, is naturally transformed into image of courage, bravery, the one who fights, of a fighter. Neutral countries who have some doubts, obviously they want to take the side of the strongest one, and they want to support the winner, potential winner. What's also important, what should we do? I may repeat myself, long-term partnership. Today we have a huge pool of our international partners. And, for example, in Ukrainian Institute, via our international partners, we try to work in those areas or countries where we never had this cooperation before. And this is a good level, to enter other countries or areas. We have to use it. And the third thing I wanted to mention, just explaining. That's what we have to do. Constantly explaining that. And have some feedback. Get some feedback, not just to go into space, but trying to measure how the perception is changing, what to stress on, what messages are functional, which fail. Because we understand that in one African country we'll have one message working, in another country we need to have another one. It's just the context is important. We have to consider it. We still have time for one round, okay? And just to keep the dynamics, I was asking a specific thing and I heard specific answers, but I heard in these answers, something we have to concentrate on. Ask ourselves who we are. Heorhii said, yes, using the poets' worlds, we already have the answer for the world. Ukraine is not Russia. Not the poets, but the former president's Leonid Kuchma's book. Yes, this is the quote. So the world already understood that we're not Russia, but saying who we are not this, but who are we? This is the problem. In the open lecture, I guess it was at one of Kyiv Mohyla Academy's events on September 1st, Lina Kostenko gave a lecture once. It was called Humanitarian Aura of the Nation, or Defect of the Mirror. So when the person introduces externally oneself, looking in the mirror and trying to describe oneself. As a nation, we have to describe ourselves clearly to be clearly translated. As Lina Kostenko said, with Ukrainians, it doesn't work. We're looking in the mirror and everyone sees a different thing. We don't have a single vision of who we are. That is why all of you mention it. Only when we give an answer like who we are, we'll be able to present this image to the world, and if this image is clear enough, we'll build our soft power. So just to finalize the last round, please, ladies and gentlemen, express your opinion on what is the obstacle for us to generate this vision, Ukrainian vision, as a political nation, not ethnic, but political, as a single. Okay, why we still don't have it? Okay, Artur, please. A good question. Thank you. I think this is the result of the following. The idea is not formed. The idea at the state level is not formed. Each is trying to pull the blanket, a different side, and like in the fairy tale. Yeah, you remember. We don't have consensus on what we're trying to achieve. Yes, we have an interesting history, fascinating history, resources, it's there. Culture, poets, literature, we have everything. the cinematography is moving forward, even abroad. Ukrainian culture is moving forward in paving the way, but we don't have this consensus. This is my opinion. Thank you, Georgi. I think it's simple, but not simple at the same time. So, in plain language, freedom, the concept of freedom, this what may combine all these sub-concepts and smaller categories, something we can sell to the world. If we try to dig the details, we have Ukrainians for ourselves and Ukrainians for others. Ukrainian for others is like Ukrainians for France, it's split for Ukrainians for Ghana, Ukrainians for China, for Cambodia, for Peru. Yeah, so these will be all different images, and we do not need to be monolithic, It's okay not to be monolithic, but the concept of freedom will merge everything. A minister gave interview to American TV channels, leading ones, and the key narrative he was promoting, the freedom concept. All that advice and colonial struggle, it's really hard for them to devour because global South have colonial past and saying oh look, Russian aggression is imperialistic, it's colonial. At its essence, it doesn't work mostly because they think that our colonialism was real and these are your white people problems. Don't tell us about it. So with this narrative, we may work, but very carefully. But the freedom concept in Latin America especially goes very well. Freedom, bravery, courage, creativity. So we can use these adjectives. Let's say use these words as adjectives externally. For us, it's important to know if we have the ideology. There are so many components of state ideology. One of them, Ukraine is the guarantor of the world food safety. For internal ideology, to realize that, they tried to kill us with great famine in 1930s, but now we feed the world. It's like we've overcoming our past. It's not enough just to saying that we're not Russians. We need to switch from this to the story why we are Ukrainians, why we're like that, who we are, what was the obstacle, and why still we don't have it. I think we did not have the strategic thinking previously. Ukrainian state institutions for a long time did not have strategic vision and thinking. They didn't see the need. Now it's high time when they want to get some weapons. If you want to get weapons, you have to communicate properly, for example. And now there is an understanding, and the Ukrainian institutions are learning, finally, to understand why it's important. I hope someday it will change, but for us, at least, but we don't have obstacles internally to do it. Alim. If we speak of the moment, right now we're living in a moment of war, in a moment of action, when quite often for reflection, you don't have time for extra reflection, extra thinking, but we still have to get that luxury to reflect and think. Because we've been talking for a long time that Ukraine is not Russia. Yeah. Well, I mean, President Kuchma said that, yes, but not us. But we didn't say who we are then. Now it's important to focus on ourselves. Not in Russia, not focusing on Russia and other countries. We have to say who we are for ourselves and for the world, yeah? What my colleague said, I fully agree with the narratives. Freedom, dignity, concepts, and today this is happening with us. But what's also important to mention, that this war is not just of Ukraine and Ukrainians. It's for the common values. War for the common values. We, as Heorhii says, we are the gate of Europe, But we are those who protect values. We're part of a global civilized world. Yes, it's from, we are the Black Watch from the Game of Thrones. Okay, as a moderator, I will formulate this last question, we want to speak about cuisine. I'll use the borscht metaphor. And I think that we are like a big pot with borscht. All the ingredients are there, so many of these, but everybody understands this is borscht, regardless of whether we have peas, mushrooms, steak, put there whatever. Like, okay, it's borscht, it's clear. But to become a borscht, it must boil and stay like for a day. We're like boiling right now. Soon we will turn off the stove and we'll need just to generate the taste. And then we will present it to the world and we'll get the soft power rating 2024 to see if it's really tasty, if that borscht is okay. All right. I'm grateful to Artur, Bryzghalov, Alim, Liubov, Heorhii. My name is Vadim Karpyak, and have a nice and safe day.